भद्रं कर्णैभिः शृणुयाम देवाः भद्रं पश्येमाक्षभिर्यजत्राः स्थिरैरङ्गैस्तुष्टुवागं सस्तनूभिः व्यशेम देवहितं यदायुः ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. Let us now pray together. We offer our salutations to the all-loving being who endows all beings with consciousness. We meditate on the Lord, who is the origin of the universe. Lord, Thou abidest in all, Thou art all, Thou assumest all forms, Thou art the origin and goal of all. Thou art the self of all, Thou art existence, knowledge and bliss. Salutations unto Thee. May the world be peaceful, may the wicked become gentle. May all creatures think of mutual welfare. May their minds be occupied with what is spiritual and abiding. May our hearts be immersed in selfless love for the Lord. Peace, peace, peace be unto all. Dear friends, today we have Professor Sukalyan Sengupta, a wonderful speaker and a scholar of various Vedanta themes, religious themes. So he will be giving the discourse on karma theory, a very important topic of discussion, very thought-provoking, and generates various controversies as well. And he has studied all these things, and through him a very beneficial learning will be imparted to us today. So I request Professor Sukalyan Sengupta to begin his talk.
As Maharaj said, the theory of karma is a theory which intrigues a lot of people, puzzles a lot of people, and as I will try to show, it is very integrally coupled with the theory of reincarnation. These go together. So this karma theory is foundational component of not only Vedanta and even Hinduism, but also Buddhism, Sikhism, Jainism. So Indic religions have a very special, in Indic religions, the theory of karma has a very special role. And perhaps it is one concept which is very different from the Abrahamic religions. In the Abrahamic religions, the general philosophy is that, yes, there is this one life to live, and based on actions performed in this life, there are certain decisions that are imposed upon you. Whereas this theory is kind of completely the other side of it. So karma, as you know, it is not a new word now, even though the original word, Sanskrit word karma, is what we will talk about. This word has now entered English language lexicon. So pervasive is it We now have a karma credit service, financial service. A lot of people, imaginative people, have started putting karma-related ideas on bumper stickers. So let's just see a couple. The first one is, "Dear Karma, I have a list of people you missed." So as you can see, bumper stickers, what do? They very succinctly capture some sentiment, and that sentiment may be pretty complicated, but in this case, you see, we always have this feeling amongst us that there are so many people who seem to be enjoying such a wonderful life, though their actions are not really conducive to that kind of a lifestyle. But why is it? Let's look at another one. This one is a paraphrase of that British stiff upper lip phrase, as you know, which became very popular during World War II. Keep calm and not carry on, but let karma finish it. My personal favorite is not exactly a bumper sticker, but very close to it. It says there is this cafe, Karma Cafe, and that there are no menus available here. You get served what you deserved. Okay, so we see karma has become so popular a word and maybe even a concept, but there is of course a price to pay, and the price is that the original word, the original knowledge system around it, it is very deep, it is very profound, and most of that profundity and deep meaning has gotten lost. The nuances have gotten lost. We have kind of cheapened this word. So the first thing we need to keep in mind is when in regular parlance we say karma, we are mixing actually two terms which we will go into a little depth today. The two terms are karma itself and karma phala. Okay, so please keep that in mind. And the main problem arises when people confuse karma with karma phala. So what is the basis of this karma? The basic theory is very, very simple. It's just a law which says that, well, if you do any action, then there will be a corresponding result. And a lot of people, they say, well, when they try to explain karma theory, they say, well, you are very familiar with something like this. This is nothing but Newton's third law of motion. The only problem is that when we consider, for those of you who have had physics, when we look at Newton's third law is very specific. It says, for example, that if I know what is the action or what is the active force, then I can predict not only the magnitude of the reaction, but also the direction, and that reaction is instantaneous, okay? Whereas in karma theory, we can't really say that, and that's where most of the problem arises. So, I said, well, every action, it's not exactly any action, because this theory basically says that every action that you do consciously. So there is a choice involved. You have an alternative or alternatives, and you choose an action. So that kind of action comes under the domain of this law of karma. So for example, I mean, the actions over which we have no control, our heart is pumping, the lungs are expanding and contracting, and the blood and oxygen is being circulated throughout the body. These are also actions, but they do not constitute karma because there is no voluntary agent involved. Okay? So you have an action, and that action gives rise to a result. And that result is what we call karma phala, and that's what I was trying to say a little earlier. We cannot confuse the action with the result. Now, once you do an action, there is a result, and that result is pretty much broken down into two components. One is it is good deeds which will give you good results. In Sanskrit, it's called punya karma, and that gives rise to happiness, sukha. Whereas if the deed is a bad deed, then of course it will give rise to demerit, unpleasant results, and that result is known as papa karma, and it will give rise to dukkha, suffering, etc. So the basis is very simple. Now let's see what are some of the distinctive features of it. So the first distinctive feature is something which we need to disabuse people of, and that is that karma, it determines only our experience. It does not, and I would like to highlight this, it does not determine action. That is perhaps the most common source of confusion. People say, oh, I did this because of my karma, and that is completely prohibited by this law. It's our misunderstanding, it is our misapprehension of this law. So all karma says is, well, past actions, they leave, and we will go over it in a little more detail a little later, they leave an impression, and based on those impressions, there are certain tendencies that may become more pronounced, but that doesn't mean that those tendencies are responsible for the action. You alone are responsible for your action. So that is something which I would like to clarify up front. The second thing is, as I just said, there is this relationship of experience with impression. So, and in Sanskrit, it's called sanskar. So let's take one example. I love tiramisu cake, and I dote on it. Anytime I see it, my tongue becomes moist. Why does this happen? Well, it happened because the first time I tasted it, whenever it was, I had a very, very pleasant feeling. So that feeling, it stayed, that impression stayed. So I got a chance the second time. I took full use of it. That impression got solidified or became more pronounced. And as I ate tiramisu cake multiple times, this sanskar got more and more solidified, okay? So now when I see a tiramisu cake, yes, I do have this intense desire to eat it. And that is perfectly within the law of karma. But it does not mean that if I eat this cake, that is also part of karma. Because karma only comes until the decision time. Based on your impressions, yes, you may have a little tendency, but the action then that you take is purely your own action, okay? And the other thing is, karma is individual. We sometimes have this tendency to associate karma with a group, a community. I just heard that this COVID-19 is New York karma. And again, that is something which is completely erroneous understanding. Karma is it only applies to individual and individual actions, okay? So, with that background, then the question is, why does action occur? And we will look at it from two perspectives. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Prakriteha kriyamanani gunaiha karmani sarvashaha ahankara vimoodatma kartaham iti manyate. Chapter 3, verse 27. And Krishna is very clear. He says there that the actions, they occur because of the gunas, the attributes of Prakriti, nature. But what happens is that people like us, whose minds are deluded, vimudha, by egoism, one whose mind is deluded by egoism thinks I am the doer, and that is where the problem arises. This I comes in, gets attached to the work, and therefore we have to then suffer all the consequences of this work. So that's one way. Another way of looking at it is, well, just to carry, not another way, just to carry the same idea. In Sanskrit, there are two words. One is the karta, that means whenever we associate an agent, this I, the doer, that is the karta. And if there is a karta, then there has to be a bhokta, as they say in Sanskrit, somebody who has to be responsible. Enjoyer here does not mean just positive. I mean, it could also be negative. Enjoy basically means here you have to suffer the results of this bhokta. Okay? And this, the best way to explain karma is through this, what is known as the karma cycle. So the cycle, it begins with ignorance. We are ignorant of our real nature, and as we heard from Shrikant last Friday, we attach tremendous importance and reality to things that are not actually real, are very temporary, very ephemeral, but that is what ignorance is. So this ignorance, which creates this artificial boundary between me and the world, this ignorance gives rise to avidya, to desire. This ignorance, the Sanskrit is avidya. So avidya gives rise to desire. Because now, you see, there is this difference. I, the world. So I feel very small and powerless, and this world is just about to kind of come and encroach upon me. So I need to kind of make a fortress around myself, and that is through these desires. So ignorance leads to desire, and once you have desire, then of course karma comes in. You act on this desire, and it then, the action has then begun. But if it were to stop there, if it were linear, then of course it wouldn't be a problem. The problem is that that karma again comes back into the loop and gives us this ignorance. And now this karma, if you have done a karma, an action, then of course you have to, as we just saw, you have to be responsible for the results. Those results may not happen in just your lifetime. Therefore comes this repeated births and deaths, this cycle of reincarnation. So we hear that there is this story that two people, they met. The first one, he introduced himself. He said, "I'm a born-again Christian." And the other one, he said, "I'm a born again and again and again and again and again Hindu." So you see, in this knowledge system, because your karma has not yet given you all the results, and we'll go over them in a little more detail. So this cycle goes on and on and on. And the goal of life basically is to break this cycle. Okay. So the question is, well, we have this avidya. This avidya gives rise to desire. What are the types of desire? And if you wanted to assign a number, how many desires? The only number that could satisfy is infinity. I mean, our desires are endless. You cannot really assign a definite number. But Vedanta says that yes, desires may be endless, but they can be broken down into three major categories. The first one is desire for progeny. So what happens is that by nature we are immortal, but because of this ignorance we have this division between I and the world and the limited existence. But this seed is there for immortality. And that seed then expresses itself through various desires, the most prominent among them being desire for progeny. Then comes the desire for money. Again, I want to be immortal. I know that with the wherewithals that I have, it may not be possible. I get this deluded feeling that, oh, if only I had more money, things would be perfect. Though we know again and again when we read the biographies of the rich, we don't see any difference in terms of their degree of satisfaction or anything like that. But our mind is still deluded. So desire for progeny, desire for money, and desire for fame. And as we know, lifestyles of the rich and famous, we are very attracted to them. Why? Because in our existence, we think that if only we got those things, money, fame, then wonderful. And I just read a couple of days ago, as you know, we are now going through this pandemic, and in the United States, at least, there is this big problem with testing for COVID-19, test kits. They are in very short supply, they are being rationed, people are being asked not to get tested unless they develop this full-blown COVID-19, et cetera, et cetera. You all know the story. But the report that I read is that in certain parts of this country, and you can very easily guess where the epicenter would be, Hollywood. In Hollywood and neighboring areas, these rich and famous people have bypassed this system, and the moment they want to be tested, they are somehow managing how to get tested. And we know there are so many loopholes in the system. So the point that I'm trying to make is that our desire for immortality is universal. If we have money and fame, then we have this deluded thought that that will then get us to this immortality. And that is expressed through many such actions. Okay, so then the question comes of character. How does karma influence character? And the short answer is that, as we just saw, karma, the actions that you do, they leave this samskar on your system, in your what we call sukshma sharir, the subtle body. And those impressions, the collective, the accumulation of those impressions, they form habit. And the habit forms the character. So if I do good karmas, then the impressions are good, I have good habits, and then I exhibit good character, and you can very easily see the reverse is also completely true. So, okay, let's now, we saw, yes, there is ignorance, and that's ignorance gives rise to desire. Then this desire will then give rise to action. And that is correct, except for there are certain requisites for action as well. What are they? Well, the first is I need to have a body. I mean, one thing is karma cannot be accomplished by anything other than a body. You need a body to do karma, okay? So that is, then we just saw you need this sense of I-ship, the doer, the ego. Then you need sense organs, because these sense organs would then impel you. These sense organs are giving you certain snapshot of this environment around you, and then your brain says, okay, now do this, now do that. So in order to do an action, you need sense organs. And you also need prana, which is loosely translated as life force. Of course, if you have a dead body, that dead body cannot do an action. And you need consciousness. And here by consciousness, I mean some greater force which then impels you to do the action. You have the body, you have the sense of doership, your sense organs are fine, you have the life force, but you now need this universal kind of a force which will then allow you to do the karma. Now, we said that, well, karma is a very simple theory and it's just cause and effect. But when we read the Bhagavad Gita, Shri Krishna doesn't agree with us. What does he say? He says, karmano hyapi bodhavyam, bodhavyam cha vikarmanaha, akarmanaha cha bodhavyam, gahana karmano gatihi. Krishna is very clear. So there is something to be known about action, there is something to be known about prohibited action, something to be known about inaction, and then the last part of the quarter, Gehana karmano gatihi. The course of action is mysterious, is inscrutable. And the question is, why does Krishna say so? And the answer is that we talked about karma, and we talked about karma giving rise to karma phala. It so happens that this karma phala has two components. One is what we call the drishta karma phala, that is the seen part. These are the results that you and I experience. We do an action, we experience it. Now, when we experience an action, as you know, there can be many possible outcomes of an action. And I would like to break it down into, let's say, expected, part one. I mean, now we all are kind of quarantined at home and people are becoming restless. And so what has happened is that the parks have become a very good place for people to take a breath of fresh air and do exercises, etc., etc. So let's take a case that I go to a park to get fresh air, to relax, and I go, this happens, I get fresh air, I relax, so that is expected action. Now, you may have result which is more than expected. So I go to this park to relax and take a breath of fresh air, and lo and behold, I find a friend whom I had not seen for decades, and so this is a very pleasant experience. So the park, the fresh air, plus this experience of meeting a friend after a long, long time. So that's more than expected. So expected, more than expected, and something even more than expected. You go to the park, you sit on a bench, you find a lottery ticket, and you put it in your pocket, you come home, you watch TV, and you see that this lottery ticket is the jackpot. So, much, much more than what you expected. Similarly, it doesn't work just one way, it will work the other way as well. Expected, less than expected. You want to go to the park for fresh air, you meet a person who is so annoying and who you all the time want to avoid, and that person badgers you, so your experience is very unpleasant. And something even worse, you are driving to the park and you meet with an accident, and the next thing you know is you are in the hospital. So you see, the actions that you, the action that you did, the results could be so many. But that is just one part of it. That is the seen part of it. The problem with karma, the reason it is so inscrutable and mysterious is that there is this other component, the adrishta part in Sanskrit, the unseen part, which is there. It's just that we don't know when we will get it. And not only in this lifetime, it could happen in future lives. So that is where most of the puzzlement comes. So Krishna again in Bhagavad Gita, he is very clear. He says, Bahuni me vyatitani janmani tava cha arjuna Tani iham veda sarvani natvam vetha parantapah. O Arjuna, many lives of mine have passed. This is Krishna saying about himself. Many lives of mine have passed, and also of yours. The only difference is that I know them all, but you know not. So, the karma theory basically says that when you will get this adrishta karma phala, you do not know. And not only it may not happen in this lifetime, it may happen in future lives. And so if you just kind of extend this theory, what you are today is because of your past actions, need not necessarily be in this life, they could be in past lives multiple times removed. And so that is where most of the people have a problem with. But in terms of the theory, it's very clear. You do an action, there is a result, part of it is seen, part of it is unseen. The unseen part, you do not know when you will reap its consequences and in what form. So, what are the types of karma? In Tattva Bodha, which is a very standard Vedantic text, it's very clearly explained that karmani kati vidhani santi iti chet agami sanchita prarabdha bhedena tri vidhani santi. So the translation is that how many types of karma are there? And they are three types. They are known as agami, sanchita, and prarabdha. So let's look at these words in little more detail. So then the question is, well, what are these? And I will read out the English translations. So the first one says, Jnana Utpatti Anantaram Jnani Dehakam Punya Papa Rupam Karma Yadasti Tat Agami Iti Abhidhiyate. So the translation is results of actions in the form again of Papa means bad deeds, Punya means good deeds, results of actions in the form of virtue or sin done by the body of a realized person after the awakening of self-knowledge is known as agami. And Tattva Bodha is very clear that this is about a self-enlightened person, but there are many other texts which say that it need not be for a self-enlightened person. It could be for even an ordinary person like you and me. All it means is that the actions that we do in this life, they will then be the cause of future results. And so these actions, they produce agami. Then what is the second one? Sanchita. Sanchita is anantakoti janmanam bij bhutam sat yat karma jatam purvarjitam tishtati tat sanchita yam. Which means the results of actions performed in past births, which are in seed form, causing endless numbers of birth, is called sanchita karma. So, whatever actions you have done in endless past lives, all those actions are in the form of sanchita karma. And in this life, the prarabdha, we get a part of that. And that's what this says. Prarabdha karma kimiti chet idam shariram utpadya ihaloke evam sukha dukkha adi pradam yat karma tat prarabdham. If it is asked what prarabdha karma is, the answer is that which gives birth to the body in this world and makes us experience happiness and misery is called prarabdha karma. Such fruits of action are eliminated only by experiencing them. This is because their wearing out is possible only by experiencing them. So, you have this huge sanchita karma, accumulated karma. A part of that is then assigned that you have to expend in this life, that is known as prarabdha karma. And when that part ends, your body drops off, your life ends. That's the basic idea. Now, the way Vedanta has explained this through the most common example is you have an archer, and the archer has a quiver. In the quiver, there are bows, and the archer then takes a bow and releases it. Now, once you have released it, then the archer has no control over it. That arrow will go and hit wherever it was intended to. So that is the prarabdha karma. That means now that you have released it on its own momentum, it will go. You have no control. But then there is another bow that you have taken out of the quiver and you have kind of lined it up, and you are just about to release it. So you have not still released it, so therefore you have control over it. And the arrow that is in the quiver, over that you have complete control, when to take it and when to release it. So the arrow that you have shot, the arrow that has gone out of you, that is the prarabdha karma. The arrow that you are just about to release, that is the agami karma. And the arrow in the quiver, that is the sanchita karma. I can give you another example. You have a product that is being manufactured. So it is manufactured in bulk quantity. It then gets stored in a warehouse. From that warehouse, it comes to a smaller distribution center. And from the distribution center, it comes to the store. So in the store, if we assume that it is kind of sold on a daily basis, it gets exhausted on a daily basis. So in the store, whatever is there, which gets exhausted every day, that is the prarabdha karma. In the small distribution center, that is the agami for future 3-4 days or week or whatever. And in the main warehouse, that is the accumulated product, okay? So, now, as I said, this cycle of karma and karma phala is kind of endless. And actions we have to do. There is no way in which we can survive without doing any action. So what's the way out? And the way out, as it's very lucidly explained in Karma Yoga, is that yes, keep doing the action. The only thing is you detach the doership. Because keep in mind that the karma phala comes only to the agent, the doer. So if you do the action without the doership, and that's where this japam and meditation and all these things, they come in, because they help you prepare to have that kind of attitude where you do an action, and you do an action with full attachment. The time that you are doing the action, full attachment, full attention, full focus. Once it is done, you completely detach yourself. And that's, of course, a trick. It's much easier said than done. It requires years and years and perhaps lifetimes of practice. Now, what this does, the goal in life is to burn off all your agami and sanchita karma. Because prarabdha karma, you kind of have no control. It has been assigned. When it is exhausted, you die. But the other two karmas, you have control. You have control how? Well, if you are able to meditate, and if you are able in meditation to identify yourself with this ultimate reality, the Brahman, then you can burn off all this karma. And that is exactly what saints do. They are able to do that through, of course, it's rigorous training, rigorous practice, but the texts are very clear that you can, and we not only it's text, we have so many examples of saints who were able to achieve this state, that through their meditation, through their disciplined life, they were able to burn off. And we read, when we read the biography of Ramana Maharishi, at one place he kind of, not directly, but indirectly he makes it very clear. Of course, he was a realized soul, that he was able to burn off all his Sanchita and Agami karma. So, not only texts, but we have examples as well. So, that is the kind of the central message, that you do not have control. I mean, you cannot not act, you have to act. But if you detach doership from action, and if you can achieve that meditative state where you are one with this universal consciousness, then you can burn off this Agami and Sanchita karma. So, now let's just look at what a lot of people, they ask about this karma theory in terms of the objections to it. The first objection to it is that it is unscientific. And the answer to that is, we cannot say whether it is scientific or unscientific, because science itself is limited to a certain domain. And the domain of science is the drishta part. Science does not and cannot deal with adrishta part. And so, if somebody says karma theory is unscientific, they cannot prove it is unscientific, nor a proponent of karma theory can prove it is scientific. Because, again, in order to prove or disprove, you have to very clearly define the domain. And the domain of science cannot take this into consideration and then say whether it is valid or invalid. The second, and perhaps the most important objection is, it is fatalistic. That, it gives people this impression that, well, whatever I am, the situation that I am in, I am miserable, and that's all because of my karma. And that karma was because of the government, and it was because of the state, and it was because of my mother-in-law, and all these things are conflated, and then we say, there's nothing I can do, and that is the objection. But as we saw, it's a very erroneous understanding of the karma theory, because karma theory is anything but fatalistic. Karma theory is very clear that you take responsibility for all your actions, past and present. And therefore, there is no question of fatalism as far as the theory is concerned. Now, if I misunderstand it and then I suffer from it, then of course it's a whole different story. Nothing that the theory can do. So it's unscientific, it's fatalistic, and the other component of it is, it is useless. What good is it if I know this theory? And the answer is, well, useful or useless, it perhaps depends on individual. But one thing for sure is that there are many situations in life where we try to find some sense. We try to give some rational explanation. And in many cases, we are clueless. The regular so-called religions, they do not typically give a convincing answer. So karma theory, whether you believe it or not, that's a whole different question. But at least it's pretty consistent. The framework is pretty consistent. So a certain Swami once said that he went into an interfaith gathering, and that interfaith gathering was with people who were suffering from cancer, many of them terminal stage. And so they all had this question, the attendees, well, why is it that I am suffering? And the Catholic priest, he tried to give some explanation. I'll not get into the details of the explanation. I'm sure you have heard similar. The rabbi gave some explanation, the imam gave kismat, and the point being that none of those explanations really satisfied the audience. This Vedantic monk, he just said, well, it is all because of past actions, maybe not in this life, in earlier lives. Now, how much solace it gives, it's a whole different question. But at least it, as I said, it is a consistent framework. Okay? So now, let's look at the other side. What does karma theory achieve? Well, the first thing is that it tries to explain rationally in the sense that it is a consistent framework, the vicissitudes of daily life. I mean, what is our daily life? It is a bunch of happy times and sad times, and this cycle keeps going on and on. And the problem is, when we are in happy times, we don't really try to find an explanation. We say, oh, we deserved it. Why do I need an explanation? I deserved this. The problem is when that happiness is then followed by suffering, then comes all these questions. Why do I have to suffer? Why only me? And you all know the story. So what karma theory does is that it gives you this equipoise, samatvam as we call it. In the Bhagavad Gita, there's a very famous shloka, sukh dukhe same kritva. So what this karma theory does is it tells you that, all right, if you are in a happy time, that is ephemeral, and that is because of your past actions. And if you are suffering, then also it's because of past actions, and this is also ephemeral. So once you get this equipoise, you are in a better situation, better position to deal with life, to find meaning of life. And I cannot stress this enough, karma theory, it makes it absolutely clear that we have to take control of our actions. Our actions that we take now, they control our destiny, okay? So nothing is preordained, nothing is fatalistic, it is all up to us. And therefore, whatever happened was because of past actions. Now, whatever actions I take will determine my future, not just this life, future life. So this theory then makes me take full control of all my actions. And there is no need for an external agent. So again, I have kind of alluded to this before. I'm just kind of wrapping up, that our problem basically is that when we are hit with a misfortune, then we try to think of external agent. Oh God, why did you inflict this on me? I have been so faithful, I have been so devoted, and yet this is what you have for me. So that attitude, I think one can negate by understanding and following this karma theory, that since I am responsible for everything, I do not need any external agent for my situation. So with that, thank you very much for your patience, and we will meditate for 30 seconds or so, and then we will have time for Q&A. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat Shri Rama Krishna Arpanam Astu. questions? Yes.
I've had a tendency in my despair to say to myself, geez, what did I do to deserve this? What did I do in a previous life to deserve this? I think there's a danger that you can jump to conclusions and really beat yourself up and you want to do something that you don't know what you did.
Yes, that will be very counterproductive. And so the best way to deal with it is there is no way possible I can know what did I do in past lives. And therefore, whatever happened, happened. But from now on, I have full control of what I do. And therefore, I wouldn't try to even analyze what could I have done, but focus on the present, and so that will then help me kind of live my life. Because as you said, that guilt trip can become very problematic. Yes. So there is no place for guilt actually in the Vedantic framework. The Vedantic framework basically says, all right, if you committed something bad, what is done is done. Now just promise yourself that you are not going to repeat it. Now, if I don't know in past lives, then that's even better because there's no way I can even know it. So why to kind of inflict self-inflicted damage? Why to go that route? Thank you. Yes, Beth.
How subtle can the actions be? Like, can thoughts be considered?
Yes, thoughts are very much so. So the best example that is given is, let's say, I detest a person, I'm mad at that person, and I say, I'll kill that person. Okay? So I have this feeling, I'll kill that person. And I go and I kill that person. Okay? So if I go and kill that person, then of course all these results, the law, the police part, all that will come into picture. But even if I just had this thought, I'll kill that person, and I did not do anything, that thought itself is a karma which will give you results later on. So it is it's as subtle as the thought. Yes, thoughts, emotions, all of them. So it's not just physical action, and not even just mental action. Even the seed forms of the mental actions, they give rise to karma phala. Yes, Prithvish.
This is a comment, not a question. I once heard a Swami saying that, and it was very helpful. I want to share. If misery happens to a person or a group, I have no prerogatives or jurisdiction to say that karma is happening on that person. I cannot say that. I cannot think of it that. If misery happens to me, then I can have recourse to this karma theory that something bad I have done before is happening to me. So what it means is, if it's happening to someone else, I have no right to say. Not even right to say, but also right to think. But because of karma, that person is suffering. I found it very, very helpful.
Yes.
We sometimes say that, we say bad.
Yeah. We are the best judge. We always pass judgments. Yes.
He was very strong in saying that you cannot even right to think that way.
That way.
That is not your business at all.
And the other part of it is, when it happens to me, suffering is kind of, as we just said, it's it's due to past karma, the karma phala. But misery, being miserable, that is my option, that is my choice. I choose to be miserable. If I am disciplined and if I go through all these practices, then suffering may come, and this we see again in saints. That is perhaps the biggest difference. It's not that they do not suffer, but they are not miserable. So suffering is based on past actions, but misery is my choice. Any other question? Thank you, and thank you, Maharaj, for this opportunity.
As always, this was an excellent presentation, tying together so many aspects related to this very complicated looking topic. But it was just, he as if he was giving a very nice class, teaching various aspects related to it. There are, some professors, they have the skill to make a simple topic complicated, but here we have a professor who makes complicated topic very simple. There are, many questions that were raised, and he answered them very well. I will make a couple of comments. It is, firstly, of course, we are all very thankful for this deeply studious and very beneficial, educative talk by Sukalyan. A couple of things here that it actually got cleared by one answer to one question, that he said that one first thing necessary to do karma is body. Now, what happens when in thought you do it? You are not doing it by physical body. So the idea of body includes not only the gross body, but also this subtle body. The second point that while listening, I thought there is a little clarification necessary in this, that when a person, he of course was quoting from Tattva Bodha, and he mentioned also that in various texts there is some different variants of this idea of what is called the sanchita, accumulated karma. The accumulated karma, then there is the karma that is the prarabdha karma, that it is agami, means the one that is not, the definition that he has given is not usually given for agami karma. In Viveka Chudamani and Vedanta Sar, the definition given is different. But this is very nice definition in Tattva Bodha too, from a different angle, that it is jnani deha kritam karma. And this is what is hinted in Swami Sardananda's great book, Sri Ramakrishna Leela Prasang, about describing what happens to the actions when a person who has now realized the truth. Now what happens with that? The very basis of this idea of karma drops off, the ego, the I, that is gone. Now the body is doing action. Now who gets the result of it? Because the I, to whom that result should come, is not there anymore. So now how would you explain that particular karma? Let us take the example, Sri Ramakrishna. Sri Ramakrishna, he was seen killing bedbugs. That was where Balram Babu, one of the devotees, who was wondering, because he thought that killing, of course killing is not good, killing is bad, But now the question came, he was being bothered by the bed bugs, and should we kill bed bugs or not? Like in last lecture here by Sarva Priyananda, this question he answered that should we kill? What do you think? Should we kill coronavirus or not? That was his response. Should we kill it? So he was going to ask Sri Ramakrishna. He didn't have to ask. He saw Sri Ramakrishna himself was killing the bedbugs. So now it is an action. Bed bug is being killed. Now it will have, being an action, it will have its result also. But who gets the result? It is an action of killing. So somebody would get the result of it. There is no doer there. Now who gets it? So Swami Sardananda explains that it gets shared. It is collaterally, it gets shared. Means those who love this person, they get the good results of the good actions that were got performed by this person. And those who hate this fellow get the results of the so-called bad actions performed by this person. So therefore, this idea of the jnani deha kritam karma, that the work performed by the body, gross or subtle, by the person of knowledge, that is agami, means we don't know where it is going to go. In that sense, it is agami. And then about prarabdha, a very interesting thing about that is, there also this jnani deha kritam, the actions performed by the person who has attained the ultimate knowledge. What happens to those actions now? It is who gets that? Because Bhagavad Gita very clearly says, and this is an accepted position by all, but very confusing. In a way, if we look that every action will have to have, this result, that this person has realized the truth. So Bhagavad Gita says, Jnanagni dagdha karmanam. Jnanagni, this is Jnanagni sarva karmani bhasmasat kurute. That the fire of knowledge, Jnanagni is fire of knowledge. Fire of knowledge burns all the actions. All actions, Lord has clarified it, and Shankaracharya also has very clearly commented on that. All actions, whether you classify them as agami, sanchita means the stored one, agami is yet to come, sanchita the accumulated, and prarabdha the ongoing, now the results will have to come. All those actions get burned. All that karma is burnt for the person of knowledge because of the fire of knowledge. Now, it is, why so? What happens then to those actions? The person who has the knowledge does not get any result of any karma. It is very important to note this point, because there is no doer and no enjoyer, no ego. Because of that factor, there is no work being done by an ego attitude, and no action is, therefore it is not, the result also is not gotten by that person. You go and deposit money, say, in a bank, and there is a teller, a clerk who takes your money and then takes it, gives you a receipt. Now, if you catch that fellow later outside and say, hey, I gave you the money, please give me back. He would say, I didn't take, it was the bank, I had no role in it. It is because there is no ego associated with that. And therefore, that is not karma at all. It is so, that is how the actions of jnani or the person of knowledge, they do not produce any karma, and so whatever external actions you see, their results go to, as I told earlier, that those who love this person will get the result of their good actions, and others will get the result of bad actions. Anyway, so a very interesting topic and very beautifully dealt by our friend Professor Sukalyan. Many thanks. We will be seeing him here speaking on coming Tuesday. It has been my good karma that I am able to listen to him 3 times in this last less than 2 weeks. So it is now let me tell you what is going to, or at least what is announced here, that coming week, that is next Sunday, March 29th, and that will be the last Sunday of this month. The topic is, and the earnest prayer springs up. That is the topic. Tuesday and Friday classes, Tuesday Professor Sukalyan will be teaching us again about the life of another great disciple of Sri Ramakrishna, Swami Sardananda. And Friday there will be again stories from Srimad Bhagavatam. This will be given by Swami Yogatmananda. So let us now have the closing prayers, and I request you all to follow the guidelines for safety, and of course I think already on the retreat that was going to happen has been postponed till the situation gets normalized. And let us do the closing prayers. May the Divine, who is Father in heaven, of the Christians, Holy One of the Jewish faith, Allah of the Muslims, Buddha of the Buddhists, Tao of the Taoists, Great Spirit of the Native Americans, Ahur Mazda of the Zoroastrians, and Brahman of the Hindus, lead us from the unreal to the real, from darkness to light, from death to immortality. May the all-loving being manifest himself unto us and grant us abiding understanding and all-consuming divine love. Peace, peace, peace be unto all. Because of the social distancing directions, we will have now Arati, but there will not be soup supper till this situation becomes normalized.